Cecily Wright, and I am the new chair for the Spokane County Republican Party. And I'd like you to all acknowledge Stephanie Cates, who's sitting up here, who really carried this for a year and a half, and really appreciate that. So if you could all take your seats, I want you to know that this is a pretty tight program that everybody's gathered up here together, great speakers. But I want to ask you guys something. When you listen to a great interview on the television and the interviewer is coming up to a hard break and he starts cutting off the speaker, how do you feel about that? Right. So if we go a little bit over tonight, is that okay with you guys? Thank you so much. So we have a jam-packed evening for you. Like the gentleman said, you do have meal tickets in your envelope, and so if you put them out, the servers know what to serve you, and if you don't get fed. So you'll find a red tag, a green tag, or a yellow tag, so do put that out by your plates. And I'd like to get the evening started, so if you could all take your seats. Who I want to introduce is the person that's going to kick off the beginning of this show, and that is Representative Matt Shea from the 4th District. I live in the 4th, and so I've got to tell you that I think Matt's probably my favorite representative. Always accessible, always helpful, and just really has his heart in the right place for representing the 4th District, for Spokane County, and for Washington State. I love the Freedom Caucus's slogan as well as Matt's, which is, you know, less taxes, less government, and more freedom. I think we all like that. So I would like to bring Matt up now to get the evening started. So Representative Matt Shea, please come on up here. Thank you.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? So, how many of you have had enough of downtown Seattle politics? That's not good enough. How many of you have had enough of downtown Seattle politics? You know, it's like they lay awake at night dreaming of how to tax people, right? I don't think we want that over here on our side of the state, but I will tell you something, that if it ever happens that we ever end up having our own state over here, they might end up appreciating where the wheat in their biscotti comes from and the milk for their lattes. So I want to talk very briefly as a welcome that this year is going to be one of those pivotal years for us as Republicans. In the House of Representatives right now, we are 2 votes away from a majority. That's it, 2 votes. Now, I want to tell you what that means without those 2 votes. All the stuff that we saw this year, abortifacient mandates, abortion mandates, paid surrogacy, forced unionism, higher taxes, more government, that's a dress rehearsal for next year if we don't win. We're 1 vote away from a majority in the state Senate. And I got to tell you something, I think I'm part of the Inslee for President campaign committee, because it'll get him out of Washington State. But I want to leave you with this and kind of fire you up. We're Republicans because we've always been on the right side of history. It was Republicans that helped save the Union. It was Republicans who passed the Civil Rights Act. It was Republicans who saved the free market in the 1980s. It was Republicans who defeated communism. It was Republicans, and is Republicans, who continue to defend life and the right of self-defense. And we're going to continue to be the party that will make America great again. Now, a little bit of admin. First of all of you have an envelope on your table right now, or you should. And in that envelope, you're going to see that it's going to ask you for a bunch of your information. Your email, your name, your address, your occupation, and your employer. Now, this is really important, and it's not just because it's required by the Public Disclosure Commission. It's really important because we're going to use all that information to educate Democrats on what free market capitalism actually looks like, because we're all small business owners. So please make sure that you fill it out tonight. And also, if you would please, use that and do your civic duty and educate a Democrat on what small business is, okay? Can you guys do that for me? All right. Now, lastly, I want to say that we are bringing the party into the 21st century a little bit late, but we're doing it with data. And part of the information that you give us is going to be used to organize us together as that great army that's not just going to see a majority in the State House and a majority in the State Senate happen. It's also going to see President Trump reelected in 2 years. So help us out with that. All right. We're going to kick it off with God first, as always. So I would like to introduce Representative Jacqueline Maycumber from the 7th Legislative District to give our invocation. Let's give her a warm round of applause.
Would you all stand, please, to honor God this evening? As you're standing, it's nice to take that moment and realize that it's the little miracles in life that we recall. As we get older and we live our lives, it's those moments that you feel the divine that really matter, that make the important moments. So let us bow our heads. Lord, as we bow our heads, please wrap us in your light and grace. As we come before you tonight, we humble ourselves and praise you for your glory. We thank you for the gifts that you have bestowed on each one of us. As we stand with our brothers and sisters tonight, let us call upon these gifts to lift each other up. That as we begin the battle of 2018, let us hold no grievances against one another, so that when we stand shoulder to shoulder and with our shields up, that our front line be impermeable, that we will begin an advance in 2018 that has never been seen before. And as we begin this battle, Lord, please hide our families from dark forces, both seen and unseen. At the same time, Lord, have the Holy Spirit ignite a fire within us that burns so bright that we may be able to recognize it within each other, that we will stand on mountains and lead our communities guided by this light. And we remember during battle, the enemy cannot take from us what is not offered or define what is not real. That you in your own holy words, we were called to live in freedom. And with that freedom, we will glorify you with every thought and action. Let every word we speak be a reflection of your wisdom. Let our hands leave only imprints of your love. And let our bodies be only led in your direction. When we have reached the end of our lives, let our hearts be not filled with pride, but humility. That, Lord, you chose each and every one of us to lead, to follow, to suffer, to prosper, to fear, and to overcome. These moments were gifts from you, Lord, to us. Let our gift to the world be our service to our families and communities. Now that we know we are strong enough to stand alone, let us be wise enough to stand together. Lord, as each and every one of us bends down to pick up the sword, know that we may lead our communities, but we are on our knees to the one true King, that we are just servants in the Lord's army, and that we will fight in only your Son's precious name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please remain standing for the presentation of the colors by the Fort Spokane Battalion and Training Ship Spokane Combined Unit Color Guard. Sing our national anthem. Please come up, Sons of Liberty.
We will be singing 2 verses.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved homes and the war's desolation, blessed with victory and peace. May the hand-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us, our nation. Then conquer we must when our cause it is just, and this be our motto: in God is our trust, and the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
And I'd like to invite for the flag salute again Cecily Charleston, our new chairwoman, who is bringing this party together. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you for remaining standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So you may be seated now. Well, after we place the colors, are you going to?
Order. Colors. Post. Colors. Left. Face. Forward. March. Left.
Great job. Thank you. Now you can be seated. You know, something Jacqueline said in her prayer was that we can basically stand together and work together and be one Republican Party. And that's one of the jobs that we have here in Spokane County. We are all Republicans in this room. and we have a big job ahead of us this election season. Number one, we need to really bind together to get all of our great Republican candidates reelected. We have a great group of people. I look at the race for Cathy McMorris Rodgers running against Sandinista Lisa, and that is almost as scary, I think it might be more scary, than the Trump-Hillary Clinton race. I mean, think of Hillary being president. Well, how would you like Lisa Brown to be representing you in the 1st District? So it's a big job. And Grant Peterson is with us tonight. And I was not chair very long. And Grant, you probably all know him better than I do. But he's the vice chair for the WSRP. He's the acting chair in Stevens County. And he really coordinates a lot of the efforts in Eastern Washington for the Cathy McMorris Rodgers team. And what he told me was that he's pretty sure that the rural counties will hold their votes for Cathy McMorris. No problem there. So if Cathy McMorris Rodgers loses this race, it will be up. We'll have to point at Spokane County and say, Spokane County, you didn't do what you needed to do. You didn't get the vote out. You didn't get the boots on the ground, and you didn't get the people voting for Cathy McMorris. That's our job here in this room, is to get that vote out. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for all of you to be working with us, volunteering, and seeing what we can do to really boost those numbers. Because Grant told me if we could hold, that was good. If we could increase it by 0.5% or 1%, that'd be good. So guys, let's go for at least 5% more, okay? I think that'd be good. So that's our job. Lincoln Day is great. It's going to be over after tonight, and that's when the work is going to start. So really, there's volunteer places on the website. Check in, see what you can do, just let us know your name and what you're willing to do, and we'll put you to work. We are going to be very, very active in Spokane County. Everybody is going to know who the Republicans of Spokane County are, and it's up to all of us to be getting the word out, talking to our neighbors, and getting the vote out. Do you realize that less than 40% of registered voters take the time to put a stamp on their ballot and mail it in? That's terrible. I mean, it's not like you have to go to a poll or any other thing or weather or any of that kind of stuff. You put a stamp on a ballot and get it mailed in. And 40% of our registered voters actually vote. So our job is to get people to really understand what their duty as a citizen is, and to fill out the ballots, mail them in, talk to their neighbors, have them do the same thing. Let's crank it up and get it done. So it's my pleasure to introduce the MC for the evening. Many of you know this person. He represented us in the 6th District from 2008 through 2017. I think the reason that his businesses have such long lines is because you all know him, love him, and support him. And that is Kevin Parker. So I got to tell you, those lines around Dutch Brothers, you're just going, really? But that's pretty cool for Kevin. And, the other thing that I want to say is we have 2 people. Kevin determined that family was important and that he had spent a good long time doing that arduous trip back and forth to Olympia, leaving his family for supposed to be 60 days, and it goes into 150 or more, and determined that, family's important, and it is. Michael Baumgartner's decided the same thing, and he will be staying in Spokane as treasurer so he can be with his 4 children. So you got to understand that what we're asking these people to do, representing us, is a heck of a job, and we need to be supporting them. So Kevin, thank you very much for being here, and let's have some fun.
Well, it's fun to see you all. I haven't seen you for a little bit, so it's great to be here again. You know, in 1630, John Winthrop was commissioning a few people to go find a new land, and he said, find something and make it so great that people will talk about it indefinitely. And then he said, let's call that place a shining city on a hill. And all the days since 1630, it is now our job, we're the people that are commissioned to continue that vision to say, what does it take to make this land and this country a shining city on a hill? Not just for us, but for the subsequent generations that will come after us. Right now, our role couldn't be more important than it is tonight. I have an honor to introduce Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers, and let me tell you that since I left the legislature, I took a small role with her as an advisor, and so I have seen her very up close now for the last year and a half, and I can tell you a couple things. One, she's the exact same person behind the camera as she is in front of the camera. She is undoubtedly one of the most sincere, empathetic people that has ever served in any office. I've met politicians at all levels, and nowhere have I ever met one that cares so much and so innocently and so profoundly about the people that she meets. And when I'm in meetings with her, I never know where I'm going to end up or who I'm going to talk to. But let me say this, is last summer, I ended up with her at a time with the vice president for a few minutes, and the vice president said this about her. He pulled me aside and he said, Kevin, I want you to know what I think of her. And I think that she's one of the very best in this country. And then he said, so don't screw up when you talk to her, would you? Fairchild Air Force Base is largely here because of Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers. She is the one who has said, let's roll out the red carpet for veterans and remind them through the VA how important they are to the fabric of this country and the content of our hearts. But I'll tell you something else. She's a lot more than that. She's a wife, she's a mother of 3, and she's someone who just gets it. So with a huge applause, please welcome the distinguished, the one and only Cathy McMorris Rodgers.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Aren't you proud to be an American? Thank you. It's great to see everyone. I'm looking forward to this evening. I'm especially looking forward to Jason Chaffetz. You know, it wasn't that long ago that he was a colleague of mine. Now, the last time I saw him, he was sitting in for Sean Hannity on Fox News. You know, that's pretty cool. I don't see him on those Delta flights anymore, though, to D.C., but looking forward to what he has to say and the others that are with us. I was really excited when Susan Hutchison put her name on the ballot to take on Senator, whoever that is. Susan Hutchinson's running for the U.S. Senate. That's exciting. There's a lot to be excited about, and we're going to need all of you to stay engaged and to dig a little deeper and do more than ever as we head into this fall. I want to start this evening by asking our veterans and families and those who've served and our local law enforcement and their families to stand. I just don't think that we can say thank you enough. Thank you for your service. Thank you. We understand in this room that freedom isn't free. So thanks for being here. And it's on the ground. It's on the ground in Spokane and communities all across Eastern Washington where the real work to uphold our values happens. It's at dinners like this that we celebrate the values that built Eastern Washington communities. Values like family, hard work, individual freedom, as well as personal responsibility, lower taxes, lower regulations. We believe that we can make better decisions for ourselves every time, better than the bureaucrats that are 2,500 miles away over in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, many in the media don't want you to know that Republicans have delivered on these values since the day you put us in charge in 2016. They would rather talk about Russia, gun control, and tweets. Why? Because they're trying to distract Americans from the progress we've made and what's really taking place in our country and our economy today. But before I get into all the progress, I do want to acknowledge that it hasn't all been perfect. Far from it. Governing can be messy. The founders set up a brilliant set of checks and balances, and they divided power to prevent tyranny, whether by an individual or a majority. So sometimes it's a little harder, and it doesn't go quite as you had planned. We all remember that earlier this Congress, the Senate, was unable to pass a full repeal of Obamacare by one vote. Now, we did successfully repeal the individual mandate, and we're working to get health decisions out of the hands of bureaucrats in the other Washington and back in the hands of families here in Eastern Washington where they belong. Our budget process is broken. You might remember that right now we have to get 9 Democrats in the Senate to join the 51 Republicans to get anything through the Senate. It takes 1 senator to threaten to filibuster. They don't even have to filibuster. They just can sit in their office and threaten to filibuster, and everything comes to a grinding halt. Our national budget, what funds the military, what protects our borders, should not be subject to grandstanding. And just last month again, we introduced and voted on the balanced budget amendment in the House. Since the 1930s, Congress has considered dozens of balanced budget amendments, and they have varied in form, but they all accomplish the same goal: a balanced budget, enforceable by the Constitution. This is common sense. If Olympia and every family in this room has to balance their budget, DC should too. And if anything, the media and the Democrats have tried to amplify and exploit some of this messy area for their own gain, not just to make Republicans look bad, but to advance their own agenda. So that's why I want to give you some of the facts tonight on what we have accomplished, despite the near total lack of coverage from the 24 news analysts and strategists. Here are some facts. Our economy is booming. We have the lowest unemployment since, well, now it's in 50 years, lowest unemployment ever for African Americans, lowest unemployment for Hispanics. More people are working because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We recognize that in order for America to be a diplomatic power, America must be a military power. And in order to be a military power, you must be an economic power. So that's why this is so important. When we unleash the economy and rebuild our military, it allows America to be a diplomatic power, a military power, and an economic power. These are the accomplishments we are celebrating. But much of this news doesn't get to you because the Democrats want to undo all that progress. And many of the people in the media want to distract you from these facts. So and I also want to mention, not only do we have Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, a justice who recognizes, yes, we can celebrate Neil Gorsuch. he recognizes that it's Congress's job to write the laws, not justices in black robes. But I also want you to know, the Senate has confirmed a record number of circuit court confirmations, 21, which is an eighth of the circuit court judgeships. This is a record, and they intend to fulfill 20 vacancies by the end of the year with just judges that will uphold the Constitution. So despite little coverage of this progress and the Democrats campaigning to take it all away, Americans are more optimistic than ever. Did you see the Gallup poll recently? It said that 67% of Americans now believe that this is a good time to go get a job. It's the highest in 17 years. Consumer confidence is at an 18-year high. This is all good news because of tax cuts, because of lifting the regulatory burden. Now, the Democrats in Congress and protesters in the streets are saying, resist. I say, we're just getting started. And not only is it the economic successes and the rebuilding of the military from a national level, I am very proud that in the last 6 months, I've had 9 bills that have passed the House, 5 that have been signed into law. That is a record. And as a member of leadership, I have a voice at the table when it counts, whether it's protecting our dams, improving forest health, reforming the VA, giving our troops at Fairchild a pay increase that they so deserve. I've led the legislation for the Teaching Health Center, more residencies in psychiatry and primary care, getting the VA to be a teaching hospital. I've led the legislation for those with disabilities so they can go explore work, go see what they can do. So when it comes to this election in the fall, there is a lot at stake. But it's a clear choice. There is a fundamental choice that faces all of us. And in this district, the choice is about who's going to represent you in Congress and who best represents Eastern Washington values. It's a choice between me and my opponent, Lisa Brown, who's pretending to be someone she is not. She wants this district to believe that she's an independent voice who will work across the aisle. So she couldn't even keep her own team together in Olympia when she was majority leader. She was so liberal that 3 of her own colleagues, Democrats, joined with the Republicans to create a coalition majority. So that's like if you're the quarterback of a football team and 3 of your players decide, oh, we're going to go play with the defense. When Lisa was in the Senate, not only did she repeatedly raise taxes and advocate for a state income tax, she wrote the budget that nearly doubled college tuition, 80% increase. And then she went and got a job at WSU earning $364,000 a year. In 2016, Lisa Brown traveled to Cuba and came back talking about it being a model and that we could learn from Cuba as to their health care. This is not the leadership or the values that represent Eastern Washington. And nobody wants Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. So ladies and gentlemen, this fall we have a job. We have a House, we have a Senate to keep, and we've taken steps, but there's more to do. A lot is on the line, and the stakes are high right here in Eastern Washington. Monday was Memorial Day, and it reminds me of the sacrifices so many have made. The struggle for the survival of this country continues as a beacon to the world. Tonight is the Spokane County Lincoln Day dinner. We're celebrating and honoring the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. I'm reminded of when Abraham Lincoln urged resolve, that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish off the earth. I know that each of you, like me, believe those words in our core, and that's why I need your help to win in November. And make sure that your friends and neighbors know the truth about me, as well as that other gal that's running in this race. So I want to thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thanks for all you do. May God bless you, and may God bless Eastern Washington. Thank you.
Great, Cathy, thank you. Thank you for your work. And thank you for not just being like a great person, but a great member of Congress too. I bet you a lot of districts look and wish that they had members like you. Next, we have another all-star hitter. We have someone who I think you're going to really enjoy listening to. Someone who, when I was in the legislature, she was chair of the party and did an absolutely amazing job. Susan Hutchison, which a lot of us know, she chaired the party from 2013 to 2018. She's former television news journalist, which some of us are familiar with, and she's also the former executive director of the Charles Simonyi Fund for Arts and Science. But let me tell you, when Susan left the party, she left it healthy, she left it united, and she left it well-funded. Please welcome Susan Hutchison for the U.S. Senate.
Thank you. Thank you all. I love Spokane. This is where I was elected chairman of the Washington State Republican Party, my favorite job of all time. You will always hold a precious place in my heart. And speaking of precious places, just a few days ago was Memorial Day, and it was a glorious day in Seattle, rare. And so my husband and I decided late in the afternoon that we wanted to go over and visit the gravesite at the military cemetery of a young man about 20 years old when he died in Fallujah, a U.S. Marine. And my husband, a retired Marine, was friends with them and the family as they went through this terrible grief. So when we got to the cemetery, my husband, it took a while for him to find the actual grave. And so I stood there and I watched over these rolling hills, and there were a lot of families visiting graves on Memorial Day. And they were visiting military graves. And I saw a woman stand at a grave. She looked at about my age, and she came walking by, and she had the word West Point on the shirt that she was wearing. And I said to her, "Oh, West Point. My dad went to West Point, and he's buried there, and I miss him." And I said to her, "What's your tie to West Point?" And she said, "My husband, Vietnam. He never came home." And I just thought, what a terrific burden. 50 years she's probably been visiting that gravesite of her husband, who was lost, an Army officer in Vietnam. And it brought to mind Abraham Lincoln's beautiful words, "What solemn pride must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom." What solemn pride to have laid so costly a sacrifice on the altar of freedom. And you know, many have made that ultimate sacrifice. But as I look around this room, starting with Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers, so many are making the sacrifice for freedom now. And I just want to thank you. I thank the state committee that it is not easy to be in politics these days. It is a sacrifice. And I look at Fredi Simpson, our beloved committeewoman. All these years she has served, and she has served so honorably and well. And I look at my counterpart, Susan from Spokane. Susan, yay. We would be on conference calls and always identify ourselves, Susan from Seattle and Susan from Spokane. I think about the hard work you all do, and all of our legislators that are in this room, everyone who's running for office. It is so hard to run for office nowadays, and my hat is off to all of you. Well, it was CMR, as we love to call her, who she and I had this conversation filing week, and I had been talking with a number of people for some time, and I said, you know, our Senator, Maria Cantwell, does not deserve the honor of, first of all, having nobody who can oppose her, who can raise the money and actually mount a campaign. There are 29 people who are running in this race. But when you look at the list of this wide variety, including some Democrats, nobody really had the ability to raise the money and work the campaign in order to force her even into a debate. And I said, you know, this seat, this is the legacy of her seat. Slade Gorton held it, Dan Evans held it, and before him, Scoop Jackson, who would probably be a Republican today. I mean, what a legacy. And there it sits with a do-nothing senator who is seeking the honor of a fourth term. So I said, and dear CMR, said, I think, you know what, this is the year. And she gave me all kinds of sort of a push on the back, and so I filed on Friday. Well, of course, it caught everybody off guard, including the Seattle Times. And so they asked me, you know, why are you doing this? And I said, because the reasons I just told you. And I said, she's a ghost. She's a ghost here and a ghost back in Washington. It's like she's a fake senator. She's just there and holding a place. And do you know, when they wrote the story, they did a little more work for me, and they said, that the website, her website, to communicate to her constituents, she is not updated since 2012. 2012. So, of course, you start getting feedback the moment you throw your hat in the ring, and the first thing I heard was, why are you doing this? You can't win. And I thought to myself, I think most people in Seattle, where I live, would say this is such a blue state because that's all the echo chamber they live in. But I know better. You know, we are just one seat away in both our house, or both of our chambers, our House and our Senate in the state legislature, to running the entire legislature. Can you imagine? That is not the definition of a deep blue state. And I tell you, it's because a lot of the legislators in this room that we've got so much power in the legislature and really helped the citizens of this state. I know the demographics and the data because of my years at the state party, and I know that Republicans can win statewide. The second comment I get is that if there is ever time for a change, it's now. People are so frustrated. In Seattle, and I know that it has just gone statewide, everybody is furious. I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican or an independent, they are furious about the head tax. You've heard of the tipping point. We have hit the tipping point. It's all anybody will talk about. And it is spread that sense of powerlessness that when 100 executives write a letter to the city council and say, if you do this, it will hurt jobs and will hurt this thriving economy, and they voted unanimously against the most powerful people in the city, where does that leave the rest of us who have no power? Where does that leave us being totally disrespected by 9 members of the Seattle City Council and the mayor? It is time for a change. And then my third comment that people make, which I love to hear, was, you know what? I think you're going to win. I can feel it. I think you're going to win. So I'm going to make you all a promise. I'm going to work really hard. We are going to have the best campaign that we can, and we are going to work so hard across this state for you so that we can win for you. The second thing is that I will fight for you. And many of you know me from the state committee. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a fighter. And so we're going to fight for you. This is going to be a very nasty election. Many of you know it's an open secret that Maria Cantwell is the meanest senator. She doesn't get along with even the Democrats. And so I fully expect her to launch a full-on attack. And I am ready and I'm willing to fight for you and for this state in order to make sure the truth is told. And then finally, I have seen it happen over and over, and mostly Seattle people running for statewide election, they suddenly forget they're Democrats because they want to be loved. They forget that they're Republicans, I'm sorry, because they want to be loved by the Democrats in their home city. They want to still be invited to the cocktail parties. They seem to think that somehow or other the Democrats will give up on their Democrat candidate and vote for a Republican if they start changing and morphing their opinions. I will not be Democrat light to try to win this election. I am so proud of the Republicans. I am so proud of the president. I am so proud of Cathy McMorris Rodgers. I'm so proud of our legislators in Olympia and all that they have done. And I will tell that story everywhere I go. And we're going to change the opinion of people in this state about Republicans. And so that is my promise to you. And so here's what I need from you. I need you to multiply yourselves. That's what we have to do. Kim Wyman won with 55%, almost 55% of the vote in this state, a Republican woman. I would be happy with 4 percentage points less than that. I would be perfectly happy if that's how we end this race. So everybody needs to multiply themselves. If you're going to vote for me, find friends and relatives and other associates around the state who will join you in that effort. And we're going to get organized and get going in the very short time. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you having me.
Wouldn't it be great to have Susan in the United States Senate? Okay, we're going to need a little more enthusiasm than that. Wouldn't it be great to have Susan in the United States Senate? That was a little better. Wouldn't it be great to have Susan in the United States Senate? There you go. She's also the wife, daughter, and mother of military. She understands a lot, and one of the things I would really love about her being in the Senate is I feel like she does have a genuine passion for Eastern Washington military and all the things that we value here. Next, I'd like to bring up for the Eagle Awards someone who so many of you have gotten to know over the years. She is so loved by all of you. Fredi Simpson. She's been the Washington State Republican National Committee woman since 2006. She was the first vice chair for the Washington Republican National Hispanic Assembly. She's a former vice chair of the Washington State Republican Party, and she served on the Dino Rossi transition team. So please welcome, with a very warm applause, the beloved Fredi Simpson.
Okay, so sorry, I'm noted to break things. Okay. So as you all know, and Susan alluded to it and your congressman alluded to it, the backbone of any campaign is who? The volunteers. Now your national committee man, Jeff Kent, could not be here today, but Jeff and I are volunteers, and we started understanding years ago how important every single volunteer is to every campaign. So we started what's called the Eagle Award, and I want to read to you what award the 4 recipients are going to receive. It says, congratulations on being recognized as an Eagle volunteer. The American bald eagle symbolizes the very best aspects of our great nation. Strength, courage, honor, and perseverance are all traits associated with the American bald eagle. It is also a symbol that distinguishes the very best among us. Eagle volunteers represent the very best Republican Party volunteers. Our party's mission is to restore the freedom and liberties for which our founding fathers dedicated their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. That mission can only succeed through Republican victories, and those can only be accomplished through the leadership, hard work, and dedication of great Americans like yourself. Thank you for all you do for the Republican Party, for your county, your state, and your country. And it's signed by Jeff Kent and me. And every recipient will receive this letter along with an Eagle Award that is dedicated to you and an Eagle pin that I hope that you will wear with pride. And so with that, your county chair nominated 4 recipients, and I would like these 4 individuals to please come forward. Matthew Peterson. John Christina. Leonard Christian. And Nicole Kearns. The 4 of you have been recognized by your county chair, your county leadership, as the finest volunteers going into this election. Thank you for your service. Leonard. Here you go. Did you really say that?
Thank you so much.
Here you go. There you go. John.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And where's and Nicole?
Thank you, Fredi.
Let's give your volunteers a great round of applause.
Congratulations, everyone. That's a distinguished award for sure. Hey, one thing that I have not done yet is to welcome all the elected officials. So if you are elected or running for office, would you mind standing up so we can all see you, and thank you for coming here tonight? And well, when I was elected, that was about how many Republicans we had in the state house, so that's good to see. Okay, next we're going to move into a fun part of the evening where we transition into the auction part of tonight. So,
and now Kevin Parker's going to come back up.
Hey, Kevin.
Thank you, everybody, for donating to the Republican Party.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Awesome job. Awesome job. Hey, didn't they do a great job? Let's give them a huge round of thanks. And just so you know, it was not David's fault and Robin that they were left up here. I made a mistake and I screwed up the order, so that's my fault, not their fault. So, David, I owe you one, and by one I mean nothing, but I'm really sorry. Okay, next, I think you're going to be really excited for our next speaker. We have Fox News contributor who so many of you know, watch, and enjoy, Deene Borelli. You know her. She's the author of Backlash. She's the co-host and regular on Hannity, and you've seen her on Fox and Friends. Please give a warm Spokane welcome to Deene Borelli.
Well, what's up, Patriots? I traveled all the way from Connecticut. I said, what's up, Patriots? My friends, it's a beautiful day for liberty. Beautiful day, and I want to thank you for this amazing opportunity to stand before you this evening. If there were ever a time for all hands on deck, it is now. All hands on deck. Our country is under assault, and is under assault from within. And President Trump is fighting a multi-pronged war. The usual suspects, the liberal fake media, Democrats, deep state intelligence community, bureaucrats, and squeaky Republican politicians. They all want and need President Trump to fail. And why is that? Because President Trump is a disruptor. Is anyone here familiar with the Housewives of New Jersey, where one of the characters flipped a table in a restaurant? That's what President Trump is doing. He's flipping tables. And Democrats are desperate. They need to change their name from Democrats to desperate. Democrats lost over 1,000 seats in government under President Obama. And let's face it, Democrat policies are horrible. They are horrible. Obamacare, forcing green energy down our throats, onerous banking regulations, high taxes. Their policies are horrible. And the list is endless, and we know that. Urban areas, my goodness, Philadelphia, Chicago, Baltimore, Cleveland, Los Angeles. Democrats know if President Trump succeeds, they will be doomed. They could change their name from Democrats to doomed, too. And evidently, Hillary Clinton didn't get the memo that the 2016 election was about jobs and the economy. She didn't get that memo. With tax reform and regulatory reform, we are seeing a boost in our economy. The energy plan for our country under President Trump, for America to be the superpower of fossil fuel resources. And we are seeing job growth opportunities for Americans. President Trump's, applaud. President Trump's pro-growth economic policies will break the monopoly that Democrats have on black voters. And Democrats, they can't let that happen. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? President Trump must be stopped, and must be stopped at all costs. Because Democrats need black voters to hold on to power. They need black voters to vote for them in record numbers. If black voters leave the Democrat plantation, and yes, I said it, no PC zone here. Black voters leave that Democrat plantation, the Democrat Party is politically done, finished. And the sheer fear of losing black voters are putting Democrats in panic mode, panicking. And this is why black politicians are attacking President Trump on all ends, calling him to be impeached, calling him a white supremacist, calling him a racist. California Representative Maxine Waters You're familiar with her, huh? She's leading the charge to impeach President Trump. She is leading the charge on the race card politics against President Trump. I call her Mad Maxine. Maxine is mad. And that's why I call her Mad Maxine, because some of the things this woman says is just unbelievable. But I'll stick to script. She's calling for Trump's impeachment. She's called him a racist. And it is utter nonsense. Black politicians, entertainers, they loved Donald Trump, the citizen, when he was a businessman. They loved him. But suddenly, poof, he's a Republican president, and now he's a racist. Utter nonsense. And I've seen this movie before. Black activists and politicians, they use bumper sticker sound bites like racist and white supremacists. And keep in mind, you white folks here in the audience, white folks across the country, these terms that are being hurled out is not against you. I know a lot of you in this room. It's not about you, it's not against you. They say these harsh terms. They are intended to bounce around the black echo chamber of black news outlets, barbershops, and liberal black churches. You can clap. It's sad, but it's the truth. The left is great at playing the race card and the black victimization card. And the goal is to play on the emotions to make sure blacks don't think, but just react. It's all emotional. And that black voters won't connect the dots of the failing Democrat policies like high taxes, which means less disposable income for you and your family. But you know what? Times are changing. Times are changing. President Trump is disrupting the status quo. Again, flipping tables. Flipping tables. After the election, Jim Brown, former NFL great running back, he said he's going to give President Trump a chance. Entertainer Steve Harvey, he dared to meet with President-elect Donald Trump at Trump Towers, and he was highly criticized. This is Steve Harvey, and I quote, "It was so vicious that it really threw me. I was being called names that I've never been called before. Uncle Tom, a coon, a sellout, because I went to see this man? Yes, Steve Harvey, welcome to my world. Welcome to my world." The economic growth generated under President Trump's policies, the tax reform, the regulatory reform, are having a positive impact on the lives of black Americans. May's black unemployment numbers for black Americans, record low, 5.9%. That's amazing. But then there's Nancy Crumbs Pelosi. She said these numbers are meaningless. They don't mean anything. Don't pay attention. With our pro-growth economic environment Families across the country are personally benefiting from wage hikes, bonuses, and more benefits. National unemployment, 3.8%. In April, just this past April, Democrat Robert Johnson, co-founder of Black Entertainment TV and the nation's first black billionaire with a B, he said on CNBC, referring to the January jobs report, and I quote, "When you look at that January report, you have to say something is going right." And he continued, "I believe the economy is on a strong growth path." But the biggest news, I think, is about entertainer Kanye West. When he tweeted support for President Trump and support for independent thinking, independent thought, that was a shot that was heard around the world and is giving Black Americans cover for thinking differently. But not surprisingly, Mad Maxine, she didn't like that. No. Mad Maxine said, and I quote, "He talks out of turn. And perhaps sometimes he needs some assistance in helping him to formulate some of his thoughts. Maybe not have so much to say." Translation, shut up, Kanye. Democrats don't like that. Mad Maxine is leading the charge. And look, I don't know Kanye West, and I have no idea if he will continue his support for President Trump. No idea. But I gotta say, it is a great step in the right direction. Because it's disrupting the black echo chamber. Black men approval rating for President Trump doubled when Kanye put out those tweets, from 11% to 22%. In 1 week, the black community is now split. President Trump, the disruptor, strikes again. Flipping tables. It's a great day in America to see black voters waking up. And I don't know about you folks here tonight, but I am darn tired of the race card. Tired of it. It's old. It's old. And I'm tired of the same old message that blacks are victims. If I believed that message, which I have heard throughout my life, I would not be here tonight, standing before you. In 2012, I wrote my book, Blacklash, to expose the failures of the black liberal establishment. Those who want their constituents for their own self-serving needs. And like many black individuals today, while I was growing up, I was only exposed to the message from the black liberal establishment. Community activists, black media outlets, some black ministers, and black politicians. The black liberal establishment advertises that black Americans need special treatment to get ahead, and that blacks are victims. And the misfortunes within the black community, no, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's the white man's fault. These are the lies that I have heard and the lies that are still being told today. And it's sad. And I know, personally speaking, I did not need special treatment. None of this victimization mentality matched my life experiences. I had God-given talents, and it was up to me, Deneen, up to me to make my own way and be responsible for my decisions. When I was a young girl growing up, my parents separated, and that made me a very angry and mean little girl. I took my frustrations out on any and everyone that I could. My parents, my teachers, my classmates, my grades suffered. I can't remember how many times I was in detention, but I was there. My life could have gone in a number of different directions because of that anger. And I wouldn't be here today standing before you. But thankfully, thank God, that just before I entered high school, I got my act together. Got my act together and turned my life around before it was too late. I was a track star in high school, loved to run. I broke the track record for the 100-yard dash. They called it the dash back then. .4 seconds, broke the school record. Left home in my early 20s, no money, but I wanted to work in New York City to be a fashion model. Couldn't tell me I was not going to be a fashion model. But that dream didn't work out quite the way I planned. I like to say I took the scenic route to get to where I am today. And I thank God every day for that scenic route. I've had numerous jobs, met a lot of people, gained a lot of experience. But I tell you, I had typing skills of over 100 words a minute and shorthand over 80 words a minute. That's what got me in the door to corporate America. And I was able to go to college. My parents worked hard all their lives. They instilled a work ethic in me. They couldn't afford to send me to college. So I was able to utilize the company's tuition reimbursement program, and I went to college at night for 11 years while working full time. And I am the first college graduate in my family. And since awakening from my political slumber, I've become a public policy activist for liberty. And let me just say, I am so honored to see Mr. Ward Connerly here tonight. Sir, if you will please stand. Please stand. Talk about flipping tables. I appreciate all you've done, sir, and it's because of you. You're part of the reason why I'm up here as well. And I thank you. My friends, I'm playing my role to promote limited government and the importance of personal responsibility. And I want to keep the doors of opportunity open for everyone. No matter who you are, it can be done. I use my story to promote liberty throughout the country and in the black community, to dispel the lies from the black liberal establishment. And through my experiences, I recognize that it's hard work and perseverance. Those are the keys to success. Throughout my efforts, I've come into contact with individuals throughout my life, and they've been very, very helpful to me. And when you work hard and when you try hard, people will take notice and will want to help you. But you must help yourself first. And as you can imagine, being a black conservative is a lot of work. The name calling is the least of it. I've been called an Aunt Jemima, traitor, token, Uncle Tom, names I can't say in public. I've been called them. And then there are the threats. Someone should jump out and deal with you. And your parents should be slapped. The words on social media are not the problem. The real pressure for black conservatives comes from family, friends, and coworkers who are openly critical because you think differently. Openly critical. I have some family members who not too thrilled about what I'm doing, what I say, and that's okay. We don't talk politics during the holidays. But they know where I stand, and I know where they stand. And let me be real honest tonight. Being a black female conservative is hard. And let me just say that the young lady here, Katara Johnson, folks, please support this young lady. I had a wonderful conversation with her. And I got to tell you, it's like whack-a-mole out there. They're going to hit you, they're going to target you, they're going to come after you because you have a difference of opinion. You think differently. Please support her efforts. And you're not only a target by the left, you just don't get the commercial opportunities that black liberals get. I don't get these opportunities. My husband and I, we were joking on our flight from Connecticut to Salt Lake City that connecting flight got canceled because of the weather. We were joking that, gee, what would my world be like if I were a liberal? What would it be like? I'd have my own TV show, like Lion Joy Reid. I'd be on the board of directors of a corporation like Susan Benghazi Rice. I'd be a keynote speaker at a huge event like BET. The money would be flowing in, and life would be probably a little easier. And we realized on our way from Connecticut, the last paid speaking event I did was almost 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Maybe Congressman Chaffetz will have me as his warm-up band for his gigs as he travels the country. I'm just kidding. But you see, I am not in this for the money. I'm a black conservative activist who loves country and liberty. And unlike Michelle Obama, I have always been proud of my country. Always. Proud of my country. Proud. Proud. Proud of my country. So before I go, my friends, before I leave you this evening, I want to leave you with this thought, that our country does not guarantee you success, but liberty guarantees you the opportunity to succeed. And I got one question for you tonight, my friends. Are you with me? Are you with me to challenge the liberal establishment? Are you with me to hold the line for liberty? Are you with me? Thank you so much. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Deneen, thank you. Those words were amazing and inspirational, and I have a feeling that you're going to be inundated with paid speaking gigs in the next few years. Our last speaker tonight, I think you're going to equally love. Former Congressman Chaffetz is quite a talented individual. He is currently a fellow at the Kennedy School Institute of Politics. He was elected in 2008, and in his short time was elevated to a chairman in the House, which has only been done 5 times in the last 100 years with that kind of speed. He also served as chief of staff to a governor at Utah, and is currently working on continuing to unify our party. So with a big Spokane welcome, please welcome the esteemed Congressman Jason Chaffetz.
That's the last time I speak after Deneen. I can tell you that. Always speak before Deneen is going to be my move forward. I want you to know I'm really, really happy. And you know why? Because and you should try this. It works. I promise. I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror and I say, Hillary Clinton is not the president of the United States. You just start off your day and you think, all right, I'm going to be a happy guy. It really, really is so good to be here and to be back in Washington. I've spoken a couple times in Washington. And you have one of my favorite people on the planet in Cathy McMorris Rodgers. I have to, you got to understand in Washington, D.C., you all call her CMR, you call her Cathy. We used to call her Madam Chair. That's the way you refer to Cathy McMorris Rodgers. And on an informal basis, you would never do that. She's just not that kind of person. But I got to tell you, when you had about 240 some odd Republicans sitting in the room trying to figure out who do we want us to be represented by, right? Not just being in the Congress, but now you got a room full of congressmen. Who do we want to represent us? And hands down, the last couple times we were there, it was Cathy McMorris Rodgers. And that's because of the way she does things in front of the camera, but behind the scenes. She's an absolutely wonderful person. And they're going to come after her and come after her hard, particularly this year. You all know that, live and breathe it. See, I come from a state of Utah where Bill Clinton came in third. Okay, so you can pretty well guess that we're going to be a fairly conservative state, and there's not a whole lot of money that's going to be thrown into these races. But this is sort of ground zero. What happens here in Eastern Washington? I mean, if you all don't get this right, the whole country pays the price. So you have to do everything you possibly can to make sure that Cathy, now that I get to just call her Cathy goes back to the United States Congress. She's effective, right? She makes things happen. She gets things done. That's why the Democrats are so afraid of her. That's why they don't want and they can't afford to allow somebody like a Cathy McMorris Rodgers to continue to thrive. She's got a wonderful family, and it's been a privilege and an honor to get to know her and spend time with her, and I look forward to the friendship the rest of our lives. I thought I'd share with you just a little bit about my story, because you're all involved. It's this beautiful Saturday night. You're here coming to this dinner, and I thought I'd spend a few minutes, now that we're at the halfway point of this event tonight, just teasing. We're wrapping up here, I promise. I thought I'd share a little bit about my story. Not to be braggadocious or anything else, but you all have your individual story, and my guess is you all have a reason that you're here. And maybe by hearing some other people's stories, that can help bolster and buoy up what you're doing, and make us all stronger as Republicans, because we need to keep expanding these ballrooms so that there are more and more people. And I'm convinced that there are major untapped reservoirs of people who really do want to be involved. They do want to be part of the solution instead of the problem. They just haven't been asked yet. They haven't been invited, and they haven't been shown how to do that. You know, as we look at this election that's coming up in 2018 and certainly in 2020, we always keep talking about it's the most important election, and it really starts to be. It is, given the tumultuous nature of the United States and the troubles that we're going through. But we have to have some leadership. And you have to have somebody who's going to help lead that way. And we've got to tap into that bigger, broader spectrum and elevate our game in how we do things. And so I want to just kind of share some of my story and my perspective, and hopefully that helps. I grew up in California. Northern California, Southern California, Arizona. I actually graduated high school from a little tiny town in Winter Park, Colorado. The school was actually in Granby. There were 49 people in the graduating class, 26 girls, 23 guys, which wasn't too good of odds for me, I can tell you that back then. But it was a little tiny school. But I'd gone to big schools. I'd gone to small schools. You know, growing up in California, I was very blessed. You know, I never woke up in the morning and thought, where am I going to get something to eat? I never woke up and thought, where am I going to sleep? I never went through that. And not every family is like mine. Not every situation is different. But I grew up in this idyllic sort of, just everything's happy, beaver cleaver type of situation. Until I got a little bit older. I started kind of understanding things a little bit more. I had a wonderful mom, a fabulous dad. I had a younger brother, 3 years younger. We played and we had a good time. I remember, though things changed a little bit when I got a little bit older, my dad would wake me up every morning that I could remember. I had those NFL sheets, and he'd come over and he'd wiggle my toes, and I'd get up and I'd go take a shower, and I'd come out for breakfast. When I got up for breakfast, their dad would have something nutritious, much more nutritious than I fed myself when I could make the decision, that's for sure. And I got up there, and he put the paper in front of me. Now, first it was the comics, and then it was the local section, and then it was the full paper. And that's kind of how I grew up. I grew up reading and understanding the newspaper. I learned what a box score was and how to read that, but then I really kind of paid attention to it. And then one day things changed when I was about 13, 14 years old. Dad put the paper in front of me, but it was just the want ads. And I said, whoa, 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 Dad, where's the rest of the paper? And I don't read this part of this is the one part of the paper I don't read. He said, life's changing. You're going to get a job. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Dad, tell me about Dad. I play soccer. That's what I do. And I'm really good at it, and that's what we're doing. Summer's coming up. At the time, I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona. And he said, no, it's time for you to get a job. And I said, well, I don't know how to get a job. And I kind of fell right into his trap. He starts reeling me in at this point, and he says, well, see those numbers? You start calling those numbers. So I started dialing those numbers, and I actually got a job. I was really proud of myself in a fairly short amount of time. And what I really liked about this job is that it was done at noon. I thought, all right, this is great. I hung up the phone, I told my dad, he said, yeah, good job. He said, how do you get to work? Where is work? And I said, I don't know. So I called him back up, and he said, I'm going to come, I'll come, don't worry about it, you don't need to go anywhere, I'll come pick you up. And I said, okay, that's good. And I said, what time? And he said, 3:45. I said, I go to bed at 2:30. This is going to be a really tight turn here. And he said, it was a gardening job in Scottsdale, Arizona in the summer. So he said, wear boots, wear long pants, long sleeve shirt, make sure you have a hat, and bring the biggest gloves you have, because we're going to be raking and picking cactus and doing. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I got there the first day of the job, and I came home, and I remember, I didn't realize at the time, but I remember thinking, I'm a white collar guy. This is not, I don't like this job. And so I said, Dad, what am I going to do? I hate this job. And he said, you better figure out how to make yourself more valuable. And I said, what does that mean? He said, if you want a better job, go figure out how to get one. And he just kind of threw me out there. It was one of the best things that happened in my life. I started to work at the General Cinema Corporation with my powder blue coat, my clip-on black tie, my short sleeve white shirt, and I sold movie tickets and cleaned up popcorn and, did all those things, shined the light on the teenagers that were making out that I could never get a date with, Hey, I know you. I was making $2.88 an hour when I saw that I wasn't making minimum wage. And I said, Dad, I'm not making minimum wage. He said, well, go talk to your boss. So I went in and talked to Mr. Hobie. And I said, Mr. Hobie, I only make $2.88. And I can't remember what the minimum wage was back then, but it was higher than that. I said, Mr. Hobie, I'm not making $2. I'm making $2.88, and the minimum wage is this. He said, we're in the entertainment industry. We're exempt. Get back to work. I said, okay. And I went back to work. Okay, there were some lessons going on there that I worry with all the political correctness, especially at this state out west. You know what we're doing? We're not allowing those 14-year-olds to go figure out how to work at the local subway or do all that other stuff, right? My wife and I have been blessed with 3 children. Our youngest, she started working, she was about 14 years old. Internet order would come in, she'd stuff it, and then she got promoted, and she was the checker and all that. And I remember saying to Kate not too long ago, I said, Kate, how much do you make? And she said, I don't know. And I thought, that's perfect. That's perfect. She's working because she needs to, and she likes it, and she's enjoying it, and she gets that little check, and she goes out, and it's her money. Now, the reason I tell you that story is it's an integral part of who I am and where I grew up. But we all have stories like this that are impressionable upon us. We were in, I believe it was a Judiciary Committee meeting, and minimum wage came up. And I said, why is it that you believe so heartily, Democrats, in minimum wage that you exempt the entertainment industry? And they didn't know that. I said, you're a carnival worker, probably somebody who actually needs minimum wage. Guess what? You're exempt. And I just shut them down so fast because they could not justify it, because they didn't understand it, and they hadn't had those life experiences. Now, I can tell you, let me put it this way. in my heart of hearts, as I talk to you about as a group of people who are involved, engaged in campaigns, we as Republicans and conservatives will win on the issues. Okay? The reason the Democrats, the national media changed the story is they can't win on the issues. You know, in Nancy Pelosi's world, we're just one good tax increase away from prosperity in this world. That's how she thinks she's going to grow the economy, right? I mean, she really does believe that. They can't believe that Donald Trump's tactics on North Korea negotiating with Kim Jong-un are working. They can't believe that he actually tore up the Iran nuclear deal, right? He can't believe that unemployment is low. I mean, you go through all the issues, we will win every single time. And I really do believe that. And there'll be some people that will legitimately and vehemently disagree. But here's my philosophy on elections. People will vote for who they like, who they know, and who they agree with on policy and principle. Get 2 of those 3 right, and you win. Okay? Who they like, who they know, who they agree with on policy and principle. I say that as a segue to the next part of what I'm going to share with you. I don't believe we as a party, and oftentimes as candidates, do as good a job as we can about leading with our hearts, about explaining and sharing, not just in one quick conversation, not just on a Facebook post, but sharing from our heart why you are involved, why you're engaged. And when you turn that corner and start to talk from your heart about what you believe is right for your state, for your country, for your family, for this republic that we have, then you will be so much more successful and more effective. You know, when I turned, I'm going to get the ages wrong here. It's like 14 or 15. I had a very difficult thing happen to me. And we've all had difficult things happen. I'm here to tell you that the most difficult times in your life are the times that you develop the most amount of character. That's where you get your backbone. That's where you get your foundation. And you won't always necessarily deal with it as good or as effectively in the moment as maybe you will upon reflection later in your life. There are places that life takes you that you don't want to go. There are places that you don't ever want to step foot in and you don't wish anybody else has to. In my life, in part, it was when in this perfect beaver cleaver world that I was growing up in, my parents sat me down and told me that they were going to get divorced. I didn't see that coming. Never heard them argue. You know, I didn't grow up in a household where somebody was beating on somebody. A lot of people grow up in that. Too many people. I had a hard time with that. But you know what? My mom and dad sat me down separately together and said it had nothing to do with me, that it was, and it took me time to digest that. A couple years later, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was in her 30s. She passed away when I was when she was just about the age that I am right now, just over the age of 50. That decade plus that she fought breast cancer, I wish they had the treatment and the science and medicines that they have today. But those are some of the hardest, most difficult things I've ever gone through in my life. But they're also the times that I grew closer to my mom. I had experiences with her that I would have never had otherwise. When you carry a parent into the bathroom, you know, it's not what you expect. I lost my mom to breast cancer. I lost my dad to colon cancer. Doctor said, this is especially for you guys out there. Doctor said if he had had any sort of checkup in the 8 or 10 years prior, he'd be just fine and be here with us today. But he was old school. He said, I don't need that. So, of course, I get a colonoscopy every week, so I still don't enjoy it, I want you to know. What I'm trying to tell you is there are tough times and tough things that you go through in your life, but they inform you as to who you are. And they change your life, whether you like it or not. And hopefully you share with your younger or older or equals in age, share with other people how to make the most of that. I'm fast forwarding here a little bit, but went to school, married my wife, started to have kids, 16 years in the local business community. John Huntsman Jr. was running for the governor of Utah. Now the Huntsman family in Utah, wealthiest family. 1995 was the year my mom passed away. 1995 was the year the Huntsmans decided to pour hundreds of millions of dollars in to fight cancer. So I was very touched by that, and fast forward to 2003, September 2003, there's a little article in the newspaper about how John Huntsman Jr. might run for governor of Utah. Through a mutual friend, I asked for a meeting. I said, if nothing else, I'd just like to come say thank you. I went up to the Huntsman offices. My wife and I, we got this little 10-minute meeting, turned into 30 minutes, turned into, hey, come on back. And on October 31st, 2003, John Huntsman Jr. said, we'd like you to come on board and be our communications person. And it was a fraction of what I was used to making. I mean, it was a fraction. And my wife and I, we thought about it, we prayed about it and said, you know, it's the Huntsmans, it feels good. Who knows where this is going to lead? And financially, maybe we can work that through for the next year. About 6 weeks after I joined the campaign, John Huntsman and I were traveling south on I-15, and he said, hey, congratulations, you're going to be the new campaign manager. And I said, whoa, time out, John. Never done this before. Never done this. He said, oh, don't worry about it. I've never run for governor before. Okay. He won. 9 people, incumbent governor. He upset them all. He's going to become the 16th governor of Utah. We had a very similar conversation. And John said, hey, congratulations. You're going to be the new chief of staff. And I said, whoa, John. You know, 22,000 employees, $14 billion budget. I have never done that. He said, oh, don't worry about it. I've never been governor before. We'll figure it out. You know, it's that story about good to great, you know, get the right people on the bus and you'll figure anything out. And that was his philosophy. Well, once I was there as the chief of staff, then I really got to see up close and personal who was doing what and how, particularly the congressional delegation. At the time, we had obviously the 2 senators and we had the 3 members of Congress. And I figured out really quickly there was a slow gazelle in that herd. And I was going to take him out. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring and run against a person who was representing in Utah's 3rd Congressional District. And John said, congratulations, you know, you got to leave the comfort of the governor's suite and go figure this out. I almost ran in 2006, but I stepped back and I said, I got to understand this. So here's what I did. Okay, now Chaffetz, you can't even pronounce it, let alone spell it. Imagine my surprise when I went to go get Chaffetz.com. It was available, and I got it. So I got that going for me, and I thought, all right, nobody's going to know how to spell that or do that. So that's where I came up with Jason in the House. That's still my Twitter, Facebook, you know, everything. I thought people can remember that and spell that. I took every single conventional normality that I could find, and I threw it out the window. Every single thing I challenged. We had no campaign office. We had no polling. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't raise money. I told my wife, we're not going into debt. We made a promise. If we didn't raise it, we weren't going to spend it. And I went through this whole thing. I got a whole hour I could tell you about how we did things. Here was the key to our success. I found stay-at-home moms, working moms, newly retired people, and people that served in the National Guard. Those 4 groups were the core to what we did. Jennifer Scott was my campaign manager, And I remember her coming into us months later. She said, I figured it out. I figured out this actually works. She set up her campaign office in the laundry room. It's the safest room in the house. Nobody will go in there. Nobody will bug you. Nobody will interrupt. Nobody will touch any paperwork in there. And she started having meetings in the laundry room. They said that, man, I'm sorry, but they weren't going in there. The kids weren't going in there. And that's how we did it. We built an army of people that were doing exactly the same thing. When we went out to find somebody in the campaign, they said, woo, I got all the time in the world. I'll do anything. That was the flashing red light to say, oh gosh, this person's going to be a problem. You know who we found that was the most successful on a campaign? The person who said, I have absolutely no time to do this. Because once they actually believed in it, they made it happen. They figured out, those people, they know how to do things. We built an army of people, just to give you an idea, in one kind of generous 4-day weekend, we put up 95,000 door knockers. Because I couldn't afford the mail to mail it. We figured out how to get a merit badge for Boy Scouts to run neighbor to neighborhood and put up door knockers. It was unbelievable. I told them, this is really bad. You can boo me if you want, okay? I didn't do this a lot, but I did do it, okay? We had all these Cub Scouts, all these scouts out there and said, first one back gets this pizza. There was no pizza. Nobody was the first one back. They all came in second. I know that was really bad, and it's part of my repentance process is to air it all out here. But it worked. I won't do that again, I promise. I remember on Mitt Romney's campaign, he would sell the interns. He would go to a place in Utah called $5 Pizza, and he'd sell them a slice for $1, and they thought they were getting a deal. All right, you all a little slow. It's a little bit late. There's 8 slices in a pizza. They're selling it for $1 a shot, and it's Mitt Romney. He's worth $500 million. But it worked. Almost. Came in second. Yeah. Whoops. That wasn't in my little script here. I was very fortunate to win that race. I was polling at 2.7%. Plus or minus 3.4%. They would not let me on the radio show. That is March of 2008. They would not let me in the radio debate. I won that race by 20 percentage points. Here's the point. Don't get so beholden to polls. You could watch a poll every single day. What's happening in your neighborhood, in your backyard, and what you're seeing is the reality. And it's all about who shows up. Lead from your heart. Talk about what's important to you. Ask yourself, why am I a conservative? Why am I a Republican? If you share that from your heart, that's what I did. I went neighborhood to neighborhood, town by town. I said, look, I believe in this country, but I said, I think if we want a different result, we're going to have to go a different direction. Here's what I believe in. Fiscal discipline, limited government accountability, strong national defense. What is most important to you? And then I'd relate a personal story, and I would tell about why I was running this, why I was running. I met a guy after the vote, and at the Costco, I'm pumping gas, and the guy says to me, Jason Chaffetz? I said, yeah. He said, I voted for you. I said, well, thank you, but why did you vote for me? And he said, you know what? I just loved your energy and enthusiasm. He couldn't name a single issue. But he could tell you he felt like I really was going to get after it. Okay? Cathy has that. Susan has that. But you have to share that with others from your heart. Let me tell you, I'm going to segue into one other thing, and can't drone on and on here, but serving in Congress, I'm going to tell you there are some really good, decent, honest people. When I first got to Congress, when I was first elected, I hadn't even gotten there, I said, Jim Hansen, who had served 22 years from Utah, I said, I don't know what I don't know, so tell me what I need to know. He said, look, when you get to Congress, you're going to just be pinching yourself. Like, how did I get here? How did I get here? But he said, at 6 months, something's going to change. Sitting on the edge of my seat, what is it that changes at 6 months? This is exactly what he told me, and this is exactly what happened. Walked onto the floor of the house, still get that chill of the spine. You look at the dais there and everything, and the weight of the country and everything that's going on, all the history. 6 months in, you're thinking, gosh, how did I get here? And then you look around and you think, how'd they all get here? And it is so true. It is so true. Cathy's going, yep, they know that, yep. There are a lot of people that are trying to do the right thing. I got to tell you, at the beginning, I did not have the vision to say that Donald Trump was the right person to be the next president of the United States. I looked at that and thought, really? This is going to be entertaining. But I look back now and I think, of all those, 18 Republicans and all the Democrats and everything, he's about the only person on the planet that could pull that off. Because we do need that disruptive personality to make things happen. And there is a reason why we've been given this opportunity. I'm going to talk about one sliver and then segue into one other thing, and then we're going to wrap this up. This is a Lincoln Day dinner, so I'll tell you about Abraham Lincoln. I knew real quickly when I got there that where I probably fit best was with oversight. We hear a lot about, the needs for checks and balances. But who is that? I remember sitting with John Boehner. I again used this phrase, I don't know what I don't know, so tell me what I need to know. He said, listen, you can disagree, but don't be disagreeable. Don't be that person in the room, okay? If you see something you want to get after, you just go for it because, the 435 people here, you'd be very surprised. No matter what issue you pick, there's only going to be a handful of you that actually are focused on that. You're going to be 7 miles wide and a half inch deep, but focus on something and you can go as deep and as far as you want on that. And I focused on the oversight responsibility. Back in 1814, Congress had the foresight to create the Oversight Committee. It was known by a different name back then. But the idea was every federal dollar that goes out the door from the appropriations group needed to be watched over, so they created this other group to do that. The committee grew and shrank, and it was one point the largest committee in all of Congress. In the House of Representatives, it's the second largest in terms of budget and personnel and whatnot. It's still a fraction, though, of what you're up against in the executive branch. There are about 60 people who work in the Oversight Committee versus the 2.2 million people that work in the federal bureaucracy. Okay? If you spend $1 million a day every day, think about that. $1 million a day every day, it would take you almost 3,000 years to get to $1 trillion. Federal government's spending $1 trillion every 90 days. Okay, so what could go wrong, right? They formed this committee in 1814, moved forward to the 1850s, or the mid-1800s, I don't remember the exact date, a young person out of Illinois named Abraham Lincoln is elected to represent one of the congressional districts in Illinois. What committee does he go on? The Oversight Committee. 9 days after President Lincoln, we call him President Lincoln now out of respect, but Abraham Lincoln gets up on the floor of the House and gives a speech. He did not believe the President of the United States. The President of the United States was saying that the Mexican-American War had started on U.S. territory when the Mexicans fired upon U.S. citizens. And the President Abraham Lincoln said, well, where was that? Name the spot. Tell me where it happened. I want to go talk to the people. What was the spot? Lincoln gave a series of speeches and followed the president around the country. Communication was a bit different then. But a lot of people credit his oratory skills to going on the road and speaking to these groups in town to town, challenging the president. That to me was very inspirational. He became known as Spotty Lincoln before he became President Lincoln. Fast forward to when Benghazi happens and we see 4 Americans killed. up in flames. And Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice and Leon Panetta and you name the whole Joe Biden and President Obama, they're all saying, hey, it was this YouTube video. Fortunately, I sent a letter, as I was the chairman of the subcommittee at the time on national security, I sent a letter to Secretary Clinton putting a preservation letter in place. You cannot destroy any federal records, but this expanded the jurisdiction of Congress by saying you have to preserve all of your personal correspondence, emails, letters, that sort of thing. That was the precursor to figuring out that she had her own private email, that she had set up her own server, that she had poured all of her information. Oh, by the way, this idea that she set up a server, she couldn't have had intent to subvert the Federal Records Act because she set up the server on the exact same day that she started her Senate confirmation hearing, and I'm sure that that was just a coincidence. Same day. Benghazi happens. I have to fast forward in the essence of time, but I go to Tripoli about 20 days after the attack. Still one of the unsolved mysteries, by the way, of Benghazi is why is it that it took our FBI 18 days to get there? There is not a single FBI agent, there is not a single member of our United States military that would not run to the scene of another person being harmed or in harm's way. And yet the FBI took 18 days to get there because it was too dangerous. You had national media walking around, taking video, picking up the diary. Why is that? We never answered that question. Never came to light. Don't know the answer to that question. Somebody made a decision to hold them back. I went there. I went with General Ham, and I was struck being there all day. When I got on the plane to fly out of Tripoli, which is a surreal experience, I thought about it and I thought, you know what? The entire time we were here, there's not a single person who ever mentioned a video. You know why? Because it never happened. It was a lie. It was made up. And that's where I really, really dug in and felt like, all right, we're going to have to go a lot of places to figure out where this thing really, really is going to take us. And we still don't have all the answer to that. And I wish I could spend 2 hours talking to you about just Benghazi. I'm going to tell you one other thing and then talk about our military and I'm done. At the end of the movie, if you saw 13 Hours Benghazi or read the book, here's the continuation. The government never sent a U.S. transport plane to pick up our wounded. They never did that. They never sent a single human asset into Benghazi, not to help them when they were under attack and not to help them once they were in a little bit more clearance. You get this oil tycoon who uses his own private plane, and that plane is directed to go to Tripoli instead of Sigonella, which is about equidistant. The plane does not take them to Italy. It does not take them to Germany. It takes them back to Tripoli. Once they get them a little patched up, then we finally get a transport plane out of Stuttgart that comes down. It's about an hour and a half flight. It's like flying to Salt Lake. It's not that far, particularly with faster aircraft. They finally get them to Germany. They get these guys patched up. There's this one guy, David Ubben, who you've never seen yet, who's really, really messed up and still is to this day. And then Chris Peranto and Tig and, these type people, they're all, I probably know Chris better than I know the rest of the group. Tonto. They finally get patched up and they want to go home. You know what the State Department does? They said, we want to go home. The State Department says, well, you're free to go. Well, where do I? They would not buy them an airline ticket. They made those guys reach into their own pockets and pay for their own flights to get back home. And they didn't have anything. It's not like they could pack up their gear and, hey, we're leaving Italy, we're leaving Libya now. They didn't have their credit cards with them. I'm convinced, personally, that the reason they did this is because we had an election coming up. They didn't want guys like Jason Chaffetz and Trey Gowdy and others to go in there and be able to interview these people. It took months to just figure out their names. I went to the State Department, and then I found out that one of these guys is at Walter Reed Medical Center. I go there, can't find him. I talked to his dad. His dad says, I promise you he's there. I show up at the door, and they are like, no, we don't have anybody here. They changed his name. They changed his name so that guys like us would not be able to see what was going on there. You need good men and women who are willing to overturn what's going on in this bureaucracy. I am writing a book that's coming out about the deep state. It's very real. It's very real. We talked, though, about this event tonight. It's about the spirit of America. You know, despite all of our problems and challenges and heartaches and frustrations and some of the divide that we see on this country, I got to tell you, nobody's ever going to break the American spirit. I don't believe it can ever be done. I'm sure Cathy's done this, but one of the most special things I did in Congress, I wish everybody could do. And that is we went to, I actually got a group together and we went down to the Walter Reed Medical Center. And this is a room, it's about this size. It may have been a little bit bigger. Think of it like an Olympic training room. Think what that might conjure up, you know, upbeat music, colorful, you know, patriotic symbols and all that around. But this was a room exclusively for amputees, people who had lost a limb. And anytime I speak, I like to speak about this because it was one of the most impactful things that happened to me while I was in Congress. This day, there were about 40. They happened to be all men. Not that only men get hurt in combat, but there were 40 men in there. And they had all lost a limb serving their country overseas. I still remember the first one that I went up to, an indelible impression in my mind. This kid is I call him kid because I'm older now, and he was in his young 20s. He was from New York. He was in a wheelchair. And he had lost both his legs, and he had lost both his arms. And I didn't know what to do. Couldn't shake his hand. Tried to hug him. It was awkward at best. The 6, 7 members of Congress, we were all kind of shell-shocked ourselves. And you could see it in his face. He wasn't, you know, he was struggling. And I cannot even begin to imagine what he was going through in his early 20s. And I wish every American, wish my own kids could have been there and seen that. Thank that young man. We went, visited as many of them as we could. This one other guy, I have very few pictures on my desk, but this is one I will always have on my desk, and it was of Carlos. Carlos was the happiest person I probably have ever met in my life. Carlos was serving, I think it was his 3rd tour, and he was a happy person, a happy American. And all smiles. He talked about his faith in God. He talked about his faith in his wife and his 2 daughters. He had been hit by an improvised explosive device. He lost both his legs. He lost his right arm, and he lost part of his left. When I was there, he was playing with a prosthetic device, trying to figure out how to get that to work. And we talked for a while, and I'm almost embarrassed, but I asked, if I could get a picture. He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. And he was all excited. And I said, how are you so happy? He said, I'm alive. I'm an American. I've got a beautiful wife. I got great kids. The food here is not too good, but I can. And, but what I loved about Carlos is the shirt that he was wearing. Wounded Combat Marine. Some assembly required. And that to me I'm just telling you, we do have problems. We do have challenges. But I think that's in part why we're here on earth, is to help solve those problems and leave this country a better, safer world than we found it. And I cannot thank you enough right here in Spokane for being part of that solution and not part of the problem. It'd be easy to skip this. It'd be easy to go do something else. But you come out, you open up your hearts, you open up your wallets, you open up and you invest your time. As a candidate who was on the receiving end of that and all that help, I'm eternally grateful. I know Cathy and Brian and Susan and everybody is so grateful for that, but that's what it's going to take. Because the adversary, the other group, they're organized, they're motivated, they just get in line and but I believe the hearts and the minds and the spirit of America are conservative in their nature. And they do believe in the same sort of principles that we believe. And I hope that we will lead with our hearts, as well as the facts, as well as the policies, but that I hope we lead and share with others within our family and our community why. Why? Ask yourself and share that. May God bless you. May God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Excellent words, Congressman. Thank you. Let me end with this. My wife and I have 3 little ones. Amelia is a mama's girl. Eve is a daddy's girl. Our little dude, Ross, is an independent. So having done some budget work, I have somewhat of an acumen for counting votes. And so I was trying to win Ross over one time, and we're watching the movie The Incredibles. And I said, Ross was 4 at the time. I said, hey, Ross, do you know that this movie was about your mom and I before we had you guys? And he just stared at, the mom and dad who are superheroes, and just stared at the TV, eyes really wide, and all he could say is, so cool, so cool. And I said, yeah, Ross, doesn't that look like mom? Yeah, it looks like mom, the way she can climb those buildings and stuff. And then the husband came on, this really big muscular dude. I'm like, Ross, do you see that's me? Doesn't it look like me? And just no, Dad, no. And then it goes on a little bit more, and I have him right where I want him. And I said, Ross, do you believe me that your mom and I were superheroes before we had you guys? And his little 4-year-old eyes, he's staring at the TV, and he's like, I believe mom was. I said, listen, Ross, you were my idea. She was fine with the first 2. I think when we talk about helping people, and when we take Deneen's comments and Cathy's comments and Susan's and Jason's comments, the question is, what do we do? And I think sometimes we can be paralyzed with the idea of we have to climb, we have to scale buildings, we have to climb mountains. That's not what we're asking. We're not asking anyone to put on a cape, but we are asking everyone to take action. There are enough people in this room to make a measurable difference. We have candidates at the state level that desperately need your help. We have candidates at the national level, Cathy and so on, that definitely could use your help. Please commit that everyone in this room will do something, will take some kind of action so that we can preserve this country that so many have fought for. And remind that the reason we gather on a Saturday night and the reason that we talk about these issues is because we care and we believe that this is about what's having a better life. We believe that same thing Lincoln did, that there was something significant in the Declaration. It was the first document where power was transferred from the aristocracy to the farmers, the people tilling soil. That's a document that says everyone has a voice. That's why we do what we do. Let's remember to be those people that care and to remind people that you have a voice and I have an ear, and together we're going to make a measurable difference. So. Let me close us in prayer and we're out of here. Father, please give us the wisdom, the hearts to move towards people well and wisely. Blessings on all the candidates and the representatives and elected officials who make so many sacrifices. And Father, let us be mindful of your sacrifice. Thank you for loving us and pursuing us to the extent of the cross. Amen.